What I want to start with is actually going back to those early days, super early days, when you almost put the hustle hat on, right? When you've got to graft your bollocks off. And there's a quote which I want to kind of use to open this up. And it's by a guy called Alex Hormozy, who's this kind of entrepreneur in the States. And he says, "My biggest regret from my younger years, not taking enough pictures of the shitty times. Take them, be proud of them. They'll be part of the story you tell someday." I'd love to know, and we can either go into Bear or Vita Coco and Innocent. What are some of the, looking back now, some of the moments and those dark days which you wish you could have taken pictures of to look back at now and be like, wow, I got through that?
Yeah. Gosh. All right. That's a good opening. So just, I'll give you a few examples. I think Innocent was a good example as a business. So I was part of kind of the senior leadership team / board, and perception versus reality for a couple of the years at Innocent were quite starkly different. And everybody who looked at Innocent went, oh my God, what a brand, amazing, must be on a trajectory like this, gosh, incredible, blah, blah, blah. But we had a couple of year period whereby literally the whole thing almost imploded. Sugar became a big agenda. Janet Street Porter, if you remember that name, she was pretty vocal about it. We had commodity prices going significantly against us. And there was also some general softening of demand in the marketplace. And actually, it really impacted the business more than you realise. And, you know, it threw us out for a long period of time. And you also, this was a world where you also had all the competition coming in and doing, you know, we had brands coming in and doing like 46 weeks of buy one, get one free to try and take out the brand Innocent. And it was that was a really tough period, right? Because, and it was tough for a number of reasons. I think one, the business expected success the whole time, and actually not succeeding was not an option. And I think particularly for the senior management team there, because of the caliber of the three founders, as in Richard, Adam and John, you almost, and let's also be fair to them, they didn't personally put any more pressure on. If anything, I would say they were brilliant. But just because you're working for and with such three intellectual and capable powerhouses, it almost upped the ante. And it took us a long, long time to kind of work through what was the right strategy to get through a very, very difficult period, of which Innocent came of it very well. But that was probably one of the most toughest periods in my career. I can remember for 18 months, I was running on vapor.
What years is it? Just to give a timestamp, what
Gosh,
year is this?
I'm trying to think how long. I was only there for around about 5 years. I'm so bad on timescales. People even ask me when I went to university, and I can draw a blank on those dates. But it was probably, the best way for me to say it was probably about 3 years before the first Coke deal came in. That's probably when Coke bought the first part of Innocent.
Is that 2005?
Could have been, yeah. It must have been, because I can't remember the dates I was there. Honestly, terrible. I can't even remember what I did yesterday, let alone
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that was a really difficult time for us because, you know, it took us a long time to get it right because we tried a few things and couldn't. And in the end, and actually there were a couple of people outside of the senior leadership team who actually stepped up and played a role. So some people looked at the pricing architecture and what we needed to do and did a great role. And there's a guy there called Giles, a namesake actually, Giles Carter. He played an incredible role at really helping us kind of turn around that business. So I think that was one. I think at Vita Coco, you've got, I mean, look, I'll be honest with you, I didn't have many dark days at Vita Coco. What an amazing journey. What an amazing business to be part of. What a great, you know, set of founders with Mike and Ira who were there. The dark days probably would have been the following, which were, then the first one's gonna be weird. Being a subsidiary, which effectively I was, of a massive US parent company, it was great because it meant I wasn't as much in the spotlight, and also we ran the business that Mike let me get on and run it as if it was my own business. And actually that's the only way it would have worked. But it was also problematic because we had a period for about the first 2-3 years where there was more demand than supply. And what that meant was that actually we couldn't get hold of enough product. Now you and I know that if I have to go and tell Tesco's, Asda, Sainsbury's, Waitrose, we can't fulfill your orders, it kicks off. In the US, they're like, no, you tell them we've only got this stock, they're getting that, and they're lucky to have that, so they need to deal with that. And that was a really difficult time because I was having to literally scrap and fight every day to try and get more stock release for the European business. and that was tough because equally and importantly, obviously, the US domestic market always tends to take priority, but I guess back in those days when some of the debit notes started flowing through from some of the retailers, where there was obviously they were charging, they were legally it was questionable. Obviously today it wouldn't happen today, but at one point they were obviously charging us per case for lost sales, and when the US guys saw that, then a few more cases came flowing. So I think that was one particular dark period with Vita Coco. I think another one which I was involved on the periphery of is that when you're in the US, when you're a massive brand, unfortunately the US market is very litigious. Quite a lot of lawsuits and consumer lawsuits. So for example, we would say like sticking a straw in a coconut. Because we flash pasteurized and because we put it down a production line, a whole load of lawyers in the US went, well, actually you're misleading consumers, and published on the website, right, if you've had a Vita Coco in the last 5 years, you can claim because they've been misleading you. Multi-million-pound lawsuit. I mean, if you knew the figures involved, ridiculous. And, that was really challenging. And I occasionally would get invited into the board meetings in the US, and I was at that particular board meeting, and, we look at these telephone numbers of what it was going to cost us. But we actually settled it, even though we knew we could win it. And actually, we had our own defense attorney, and they were like, you can win this hands down. But it was going to take 2 or 3 years. And our main investor, Verlinvest, were absolutely fantastic. They were just like, look, we'll get through this. Tell us how much money we need and we'll get through it. But we settled it because even though pride and principle would have told you to do otherwise, it would have been a massive distraction for the business to have that going on. We swallowed it, just took the hit on the money, and meant we could just then focus 100% on building that business. And then probably darkest day for me, actually my darkest day of my whole career is the following, which you'll probably laugh at this one, is that it's probably the day I left Vita Coco stroke the day I couldn't go when we IPO'd it on the NASDAQ. So there was a selected group of, I think, 6 or 7 of us who'd been there since inception, stroke with a kind of main senior team in the US. And the whole idea was I was supposed to fly over and be there at the kind of the opening morning on the NASDAQ and the bell ringing and stuff. And, when you've put in, a decade, 12 years into a business that's been your whole life, there was one issue, and that was COVID, and I wasn't allowed to fly. Unfortunately, you could go across most countries by then, but unfortunately with the US, I still couldn't get into the US. I actually managed to get an exemption, but unfortunately it arrived at 11 p.m. and it was about 5 hours too late for me to get on a flight. So I missed that. And when you put in that much effort, and also when you want to be there to celebrate with the guys you've kind of been through everything with in the 12 years, that's probably one of the darkest moments for me. And, leaving, I think I was obviously involved with Haley and Andrew who ran Bear and who founded Bear. And obviously I helped support them grow that. And, obviously we sold that business to Lotus, and that was a tough day. But Vita Coco, because of the way that Mike let me run it, always felt like my own thing. And actually, when I left that business, that was a big hole. Mentally, that was quite challenging. I felt very lost for quite a few months, actually, after leaving that business.
When you say very lost, what the thoughts in your head? What's when you're out on the bike? I know, but it's interesting because it's like
I threw myself into that more, right?
Distraction. But I think that's when that's on those long bike rides or runs or those moments of solidarity kind of thing. That can actually make you feel more lost, but you need to feel lost to feel found, is what I believe, really.
Yeah, it was a tumble dryer of things, right? It was everything from, that's been my baby for 12 years. I'm now no longer with that business. And there was a sense of loss, and there was a big cavity that was, I was struggling. Obviously, I was already investing in other businesses and, doing a couple of bits of non-exec, but it's not the same as kind of running your own ship. Now, at the same time, I also got to a place with that business where, for example, if you look at certain roles, so obviously I was CEO and I was running it, but we brought in a managing director, a lovely guy called Tim Rees. Tim has just taken that business to a level, hand on heart, I couldn't have taken that business to today.